Okay, good. All right. Good morning, everybody. And here we go. So I hope everybody's doing okay. And, you're here. It's another beautiful day in New York, that's for sure. Seems like we've racked up quite a few. And I hope no matter what the weather is outside where you are, I hope and trust that the weather inside is good as well, right? So what does that mean, the weather inside? How you feeling? How do you feel? How do you feel in your body? How do you feel in your heart, in your head? And that's kind of what we explore on the mat. Some of you may be surprised that it's Yom Kippur and I'm still teaching my class. Well, there's no surprise for me. It's this, I've always said that on Saturday morning, this is my sanctuary. This is my place to kind of commune with the great mystery and the powers that be. So so we'll practice. We'll start by sitting and supporting. So find your comfortable cross-legged position. Remember, if cross-legged is not good, soles of the feet together. If sitting is not good for you right now, certainly you can come onto your backs for a little bit. And once you do find your seat, just notice your root support. So what does that mean, your root support? We have a foundation, right? So if we're going to use like metaphors of trees or reeds or whatever, even what the lotus flower, right? You always see the beautiful lotus on the top of a lake, but you know that their roots are really, really deep down into the earth below the surface of the water. And that's the same with us, right? Metaphorically, like, how are you rooted on your mats? How are you rooted in your lives, right? And how does your physical body reflect those roots? As a body worker and a yoga instructor, we look at people's gaits, right? We look at, how people are rotated, how they're pitched, how they're tipped. Are they tipping back? Are they tipping forward? Are they tipping sideways? How they walk? Are their legs even? Are their hips even? It's just one of those things that we try to notice, but we don't always notice it for ourselves. So let's take another moment or two to feel our roots. Roots to the earth, roots to our ancestors, right? Maybe your parents, your cousins, your grandparents, your tribe. And then once you feel like you've kind of acknowledged that enough, we'll come to the upper part of our body, right? So when we think about roots, we think about the lower part. So we come from that very basic tribal first chakra. We make the journey up to the heart space. Right, so the heart, right, is that beating muscle, that wonderful muscle that keeps the blood flowing. And then there's the heart of the matter, the love, the passion, the compassion, the empathy. During this particular holiday, in this past 10 days, we think about righting wrongs, right? Making amends, right? Not only to other people, places, and things, but even to ourselves. Now, this is a practice for me that is really yoga and what we try to do every day. So it's not only making amends or apologizing or taking responsibility or stock, but it's also an act of forgiveness, right? So, and forgiveness, I think, is an action. So we need to not only, forgive others, but again, forgive ourselves for our trespasses, so to speak. And to me, that's a heart place. It's not just in the head. So, how can you forgive yourselves? And then we come from the root to the heart, which is kind of in the middle, and we come up to the head. We come to the crown chakra. And the crown chakra is that connection to, right, the universal energy, to God, to goddess, to the mystery, whatever word or image, to nature that works for you. And for me, that's an expansion of we are not alone, right? And that we are interconnected on so many levels. But somehow that gets distorted and we forget. So opening now to the infinity that is you, let your breath be the conduit to that infinite energy. So with another breath or two here, because I feel myself wanting to just stay right here in that meditation, in that connection. But I know that my body is asking for a little relief. So that's where we're going to give it with our asana practice. So with your next breath, staying connected to how you're feeling right now, allow your chin to drop down to the chest. Keep peeling the collarbones back a little bit. Keep lifting the pelvic floor and the navel. And if your eyes were closed, we're going to start to open them as we look down toward the roots again, looking down toward the floor and actually letting ourselves spill forward, right? Letting the head come down. Now, I heard once, and I, kind of repeated it over the generations or decades that I've been teaching, that when we look down at the feet, we look down at the floor, the feet are like the servants, right? They move us through our lives, right? And our head and our mind are like the king or the queen, right? Right, where we give ourselves so much credit for thinking and knowing. And then when we bow down, we give reverence to the servants, right, of our feet that really carry us through our lives. So take a breath here as you bring your hands or fingertips onto the ground and really feel that earth energy. And then turn your head a little bit left and right, loosening up your neck, unclench your jaw. And then we'll do our walk over. So we're going to walk over toward the right, bringing that left arm with you, nose toward that knee, shake your head. Breathe in, breathe out. And then we'll swing on over toward the left. And again, let your head go. Breathe in. And then find your way back through center. And we'll roll on up. We'll lean back and we'll find our balance here. Yeah, so hold that for a moment. Hold that for a moment. And then we'll change the crossings of the shins. And once again, fall forward, bow it down, reach out, get grounded, get connected. As you plant your hands and fingers on the floor, know that we're going to use our hands on the floor later for support, for foundation. Walk over toward your right, nose toward that knee. Shake yes, shake no. And we'll swing on over toward the other side, bowing down toward that left knee, moving the head, neck, and shoulders. And then we'll find our way back through center, unfurl, come all the way up, lean back, lift your legs, pause here. And let's take an extra little pause here in this Navasana, right? Bring the front of your throat back and let the crown of your head reach up as your legs reach, your arms can reach. If you have the flexibility in your thighs right now and your hips, you can straighten your legs. I'm not there yet. Breathe in, breathe out. And then when you're ready, release your legs and shake them out. Rock them in and out, do a few little leg bangers, try to get some energy moving through, especially sitting cross-legged if they got a little sleepy. I'm going to come off of one blanket and let the legs come out again and kind of move the flesh of your butt back a little bit or out to the side so you can really feel the bones connecting to your blankets. Right? I came off of one. You might still need to be on two, depending on your hamstrings and the tightness in your back. So reach out long through your legs. Notice your inner thighs also moving forward. Sometimes we kind of let the legs roll out, but we want to be nice and neutral. Kneecaps up toward the ceiling, big toes up toward the ceiling, inner ankle bones pointing toward each other. And we'll start with just some pointing and flexing. Right? So if you can see, my heels are still down on the mat, and I'm just kind of scraping those heels, right? I always like to visualize being on the beach and how you kind of play with the sand, scraping your heels, maybe getting your toes into the sand. So we'll do a few little divots here. Great. And then flex your feet, firm up your quadricep muscles, those muscles above your knees, and then roll the legs out. So if you can see, my toes are pointed out, rolling out here, trying to stay as tall as you can. Lift your pelvic floor. And then let's point the toes on the out. And then bring those legs back into parallel. And you can turn the toes in. Now, what you may have had to do is separate your legs a little bit wider in order to do this. And then let's come back to neutral. So let's try it again. Open your legs just a little bit wider. Exhale, turn the toes out, or inhale, whatever your breath is. I really can't call the breath here. And then from the turn out, point your toes forward. Keep the toes pointed forward. Bring those toes into parallel and then flex your feet. You can bring the legs in a little bit. I didn't do that. All right, let's do it one more time and I'll do it right this time. So we're going to turn the feet out, turn those thighs out. Now we're going to point. We're going to keep the toes pointed. And as you keep the toes pointed, they're going to point in toward each other. And then we bring it back into flex. So big circle. Let's do it a few times. And don't get caught up in the alignment of it. Just let those legs turn as you let your ankles turn. Okay. Now, the next time you turn in, we're going to roll out, flex, and just kind of reverse the circle. I think that's what we're doing. Try to do that. It doesn't matter. Just play. All right. Just keep those ankles moving. Keep those thighs moving. Now, we might notice it in the ankles a little bit more, but the hips are really doing a lot of work. I can feel my glutes, my sacrum. And then come to neutral and let your legs shake out. Do a few little leg bangers. And then let's bring the soles of the feet together. So feel some good energy up in the legs, perhaps. Hands on the shins. We'll do a few cats and dogs if your back got tight doing those ankle rolls. So inhale, lengthen up, lift your pelvic floor, lift your navel, spread your collarbones, look up toward the sky. And then on your exhalation, very slowly, rock it back. Drop your chin, feel the collarbones kind of moving in toward each other as the shoulder blades separate from each other. And now we'll reverse that. Let the collarbones spread away from each other as the shoulder blades come in toward each other. Alternating dogs and cats. So you're matching the movement and the breath. Actually, the breath is initiating the movement. And because we're individuals in our own body with our own issues, you'll notice different places along your spine where you feel this. So full permission to pause and take a little extra stretch, a little extra acknowledgement of those body parts that are tight. And we'll do one or two more cats and dogs here. Nice. And we'll begin to hinge forward from the cat. So rock your cat back, your tail under, so you're posteriorly tipped in your pelvis. Let your eyes look towards your heels and bring your head toward those heels as you lay out over those feet, walking your arms forward. Now take a few deep breaths here. And again, following the sensation that you feel in your body. Do you feel it in your lower back, your sacrum, maybe your kidney area, maybe right in the middle of your spine, upper back, neck, shoulders, right? And then inhale, reach your arms out. Let your arms reach forward and bring it on up. Reaching those arms up, and we'll touch the sky. Look up. Now, apparently I was indoors, what was it, Thursday night, when the sky got all the northern lights and stuff. We missed that. But I saw a lot of cool pictures. So imagine that you're reaching up to those northern lights. Yeah, bringing that energy down into you, and then two arms reaching evenly. Palms are facing each other. They'll continue to face as you bring your arms out to heart high. The palms are now facing the ceiling and radiate out. So you're sitting right in the center, and those arms are being drawn away. So there's one person on your right, one person on your left, drawing your arms out. And we'll do just a little gentle circle back, right? So imagine your thumbs touching the room or the space behind you. Good. And then let's gather the arms back up. They're getting heavy, I know. And then let the palms of the hands come together. Namaste. Interlace your fingers, and we'll do that rock back into the cat, hollowing out your belly, drop your chin, really tuck it, navel in, and then come on up. Palms reach up. I believe we did this last week. Palms reach up, arms by your ears. Keep drawing your tummy in so you're not hyperextending your spine. And we'll do a little rocking back and forth from side to side. There we go. Opening the side body. Good. And then with your next breath, just let those hands drop down, and they're going to come behind you. You can either put just your fingertips, your knuckles, or maybe your whole palm can touch the floor. We'll press down and we'll grow up through the spine. Again, keep lifting the navel. If anything hurts, you want to come out of the hurt, right? So how do you move away from the pain? And then press off of those hands, gather the arms up again. We'll come right back here. Bring the palms of the hands together, and this time we'll change the webbing as we interlace our fingers. Press those arms out, hollow out the belly again, rock it back. Maybe reach back so far that if you did let those arms go, you might fall back onto your spine. And then stay very neutral as you lift the arms up. And again, we'll do a little side bend. Little side bend from side to side. And then find your way back up. And then once again, we'll do that big heart opening. So it's like you're drawing the pelvic floor up, sending your pelvis forward a little bit, your belly forward. Keep thinking up rather than crunching back and down. Opening your chest, opening your throat toward the ceiling, your face. You can even scrape your eyeballs across the ceiling behind you. Big breath in, big breath out. You can hear the changing in my voice, right? Because the breath is so different here. And then let your head come back up and bring your hands to your knees. Great. All right. So once again, let's shake out the legs. Let's shake them out, do a few little leg bangers. And then we're going to open the legs wide. So don't worry about, moving on your mat. You see my feet are on the wood floor. It's not a problem. We'll be here for just a little bit. So we're going to do a little twisting and forward folding. So before we twist, let's just shore up the pelvic floor, draw that belly in. It's almost like you want to press your sacrum toward the back of the room a little bit, right? So we're really active here. And while you're doing all of that, you're coming forward. Easy forward bend. You can let your head hang, hands on the floor. Maybe you need blocks under your hands. It doesn't matter how far down. Some people will be really high up. The only thing that I'm asking you to do here, well, I'm asking you to do a lot, but what I really want you to focus on is your knees. So look at your kneecaps. Are your kneecaps poking up toward the sky? Your toes poking up toward the sky? And then with your next breath, use that belly as you slowly unfurl. Let's look out over the right leg, hands straddle either side of that leg, and you can drop your chin as you roll out over that leg. Easy does it. Now look, I'm not going down that far. My body says not yet, right? Maybe later. And what I'm noticing is that my opposite leg is starting to roll in. So I want to think about this opposite leg staying very neutral, which means I can't go down that far. And then inhale, roll up. And we'll swing over to the other side, really thinking less about the side that we're bowing toward, but more about the opposite leg staying very neutral. And we'll keep it going, breathing in and breathing out. Very important to not lose your connection, especially if you have back issues, right? You want to stay very connected here and just trust that the movement from side to side will begin to warm you up and to be able to ease some of the holding. Breathe in, breathe out, keep it going. So this is our little moving meditation. And remember, if some of you are local, this is a little advertisement. Betsy's teaching a merging movement and meditation workshop in Westchester next Saturday, 1 o'clock. I will be there. So keep your asanas moving. Another breath or two. We're going to go to the right. And then we'll come to the left again. And come back up to center. And with your next breath, just like we started, let's come forward. Keep drawing that belly in. Beautiful. Those inner thighs are rolling out. Draw the navel in and notice if there's any shift. Are you a little further forward? Not that it's the goal. The goal is to notice a shift in your body, right? A shift in the energy, in the flexibility. And then with your next breath, you want to draw that navel back in and come all the way up. Let's bend the knees, bring your feet onto the floor, kind of in front of you, and maybe walk those heels in as close as you can. And if you can't reach in front of your shins, you can bring your hands behind your thighs. But if you can reach, I like to kind of do this with my hands and clasp them. And then draw your chest in, kind of create a little bit of a lock here and bow your head down. Think about child's pose, right? So we're in a seated child's pose, really rounding everything down. Good. And then with your next breath, find your way back up. Okay. We're going to come off of our seat and onto your back. And as you come onto your back, you can have a blanket handy. We're going to do a little bridging first, so we're not going to use the blanket for bridge, but have a strap, okay? Have a strap handy as you come down. Breathe in, breathe out. As you come onto your back, and when you come down onto your back, let your legs go. For many of us, the tendency is for the legs to roll out, which is okay, and just notice where your legs go. And breathe. So feel, again, coming back down into the roots, right? So settling your bones down onto the ground. A couple more breaths here. Did you feel any spinal adjustment as you settle? Let the exhale be a little bit deeper than the inhale for grounding. And then with your next breath, bring 2 feet on the floor, knees up toward the ceiling. Arms will come down by your sides. You can press into your elbows and poke your chest up toward the ceiling a little bit to roll the shoulders back down. And then do a little pressing into your feet so you can lift your hips off the ground a little bit. We're not coming up into that full bridge just yet. So if you can see, I'm kind of lifted a little bit, sending my sit bones toward my heels. Belly is coming in and then sending that lower back down toward the earth. So not doing that big dog tilt here. We want to come into more of a neutral pelvis. Before we do some bridging, we'll do a little work with some hip flexion. So draw, without using your hands, draw your right knee into the chest, let that foot come down. We'll do just a little marching here from side to side. Again, we probably did this recently. I think we did this last week. It's been on my list of things to do every day lately to help support my hips and my lower back. And I'm taking you guys along for the ride. So we'll do 1 or 2 more. Good. Now, the next time your right knee comes in, you can grab it, grab behind that thigh if that feels good, or in front of the shin, and then let your left leg float up toward the sky, right? So this is a nice, long, extended leg. And with the next breath, you can use 2 hands on that right leg. Just send your left leg long onto the mat. Now, when that left leg reaches down, press out through the heel. So you can almost feel like your thigh bone is moving out of your hip socket a little bit. That's how far forward you want to press. Really firm it up. Give some space into that hip joint. Another breath. And then with your next breath, lift the left leg, bend that knee, hold on behind the thigh, release your right leg, and let your right leg stretch up toward the ceiling. Flex out through that heel, navel in, and then let your right leg extend down onto the earth. So it's as strong as and as straight as it was when we were seated. And then once again, scrape the floor and really press that right leg to touch the wall in front of you. Free it up from that hip socket just a little bit. Send it forward. Keep breathing. Another breath. And then with your next breath, let that whole right leg straight up toward the sky and bend both knees now. Hug your knees in, but let them open at the same time. So the knees and the thighs are opening away from each other. So remember when we were seated and we opened our legs wide and then we bent over one leg and then the other and right down to the center. So that's as wide as we want to open the legs. Now bring your hands behind your thighs and let your legs open up toward the ceiling. So like your legs are in the shape of a V, right? Turning those legs out, pressing out through the heels, flex the feet, feel your sacrum on the ground, and then bring the legs toward each other. So they're about hip width apart up toward the ceiling. Back of the pelvis is on the floor, back of the, the thoracic spine, the shoulders are down. And then from here, just lift your arms up toward the ceiling. The palms are facing each other. So we call this the dead bug pose. Now, with this dead bug pose, you really need to activate your pelvic floor and navel. So squeeze your belly button to touch the floor behind you or under you. And we're going to hold this. We're not holding the breath, but we're holding the pose for just a little while. So keep breathing. Some of you might start to feel a little vibration, a little pulsation, and actually that's a desired effect. So if you're feeling that, you're doing it perfectly right. Yeah. Feel your thighs, the blood draining from your feet and arms a little bit, coming down into your viscera. Beautiful work. A couple more moments with the dead bug. Breathe in, breathe out. And then let your feet drop down, let your arms come down by your sides. Now with your feet down, plant all 10 toes down on the ground. So feel the tips of those toes, just like we were planting our fingertips down to the floor before. You want to really spread out all your toes and then feel the heel of your foot, of both feet on the earth. And then with your next breath, tuck your tail under and slowly press into your feet and start to roll up to your first bridge. So we're rolling up, you're getting an assessment of where you need to be. Maybe your feet need to move forward or back, away from you or toward you a little bit, and then slowly roll it down. And we're going to keep our bridge moving for a bit. So once your hips come down, press into your feet and roll back up. We'll do a total of 6 or 7, just like this. Yeah, feel how your whole back body is supporting you as you open and stretch your front body. Once again, staying very connected to your pelvic floor and your navel. Let me see who I can see as you roll up and down. Beautiful. Okay. And then the next time you come down into your bridge, the next time you come down from your bridge, I should say, and your feet are on the floor, your hips are on the floor, just let your knees open out into a book. And sometimes it's nice to press into the pinky edge and lift your hips and then let your hips settle back down. So another stretch for the inner thighs. Feel the outward rotation of those hips. Belly in. Yeah, keep breathing. You can even take your hands on the tops of your thighs, as close to where they come into those hip sockets, and then just give a little press forward. Again, thinking about creating space in that hip socket or those hip sockets. Breathe in, breathe out. And then with your next breath, let your feet come back up or onto the floor, knees up toward the ceiling. Now we're going to do another bridging up and down, but it's going to be a little bit different. So what I want to do is have you open your feet just a little bit wider than your hips, right? Usually we're very parallel with our bridge, but this one's going to be a little bit wider. And we're going to start with the toes turned out. So turn your not too crazy out, but out more than parallel. And then from there, we're going to press the pelvis up, right? So you can feel how there's an outward rotation. Those knees are rolling out a little bit. Your pelvis is lifted. Now, your hips are going to drop down toward and touch the floor, and your toes are going to poke in toward each other. So your heels are pushing out, and then you'll lift your pelvis again, right? And now we're going to do it on the move. So you drop your hips down, turn your toes out, lift your pelvis, drop your hips, turn your toes in, lift your pelvis, and so on. So we're going to keep it going. And the thing that's moving are your feet and your ankles, right? I'm not sure if you can see me. If you need to, you can take a peek and see how my toes and my thighs are moving. And I like to do it kind of quickly, right? I still want to breathe, but I want to, it's more of like a little bit of an aerobic exercise. So I'm going to slide toward the camera to see how you guys are doing here. Good. Right. So remember, it's about the toes turning in and turning out. Nice. There you go. Thank you, Jane, for teaching me how to do this. Good. That's it, Steve. Steve, can you come a little bit higher in your bridge? Can you lift your pelvis a little bit higher off the ground? Let's do one or two more. Great. And then when your hips come down, beautiful, Rob. That's gorgeous. Thank you. Now, when your hips come down, just pause again, and you can come into that Supta Baddha Konasana, bringing the soles of your feet together, letting your knees open. There you go, waffles. You got an itch, waffles? Breathe. Okay. So one more bridge. We're going to do one more variation of bridge, but that variation is going to bring us into a very static bridge, meaning that we're going to stay in the bridge for a few breaths. So bring your feet back into parallel. Work your shoulders underneath you, arms down by your sides. And then lift your toes. So we're going to come on to the heels, right? So lift your toes. You might need to inch your feet forward an inch or two. And now lift your hips up into your bridge. So your toes are lifted. Once you come up, yep, you can snuggle those arms underneath you. Come up a little bit higher, everybody. Lift your pelvis. Beautiful, Mary. You got this. And then from here, let your toes just sink down into the mud, onto the floor, your roots, your lily pads, and then press your hips up a little bit higher. You can use your arms underneath you. Beautiful, Suzanne. A few more breaths here. Now, one nice thing to do sometimes in a bridge is to bring your arms up overhead. So you can try that here if that feels good. Remember, it's the back of your shoulders and your head on the floor. The arms can come all the way down on the floor if you can touch, and then you can lift your hips a little bit higher. And then once you lift your hips a little bit higher, let your arms come back down by your sides, keeping your hips where they are. Beautiful, Jane. Thank you. Now, with your next breath, lift your heels. So you're on the balls of the feet and on the toes. So you're going to lift your heels. The hips will lift a little bit higher. And now arms will open, and very, very slowly, inch by inch, you roll your spine down onto the ground. Don't plop down. Really take your time. What muscles are working? What's happening internally to give you that strength and wherewithal to slowly descend down? Yeah. And then once you come down, my guess, right, is that you just want to pause for a minute because you just worked a lot. I mean, that was pretty crazy and intense. But my guess is that you might want to do a little twisting. So let your arms open out, and I recommend opening your feet a little bit wider than your hips. And we'll do a little windshield wipering with those knees. So letting your hips, your knees or thighs drop to one side and then the other, staying very connected to your pelvic floor. Yeah. So just swaying a little bit from side to side. So not only are we kind of loosening up the hips and the glutes and all of those that just really worked hard for us, but it's a little upper body and torso and shoulder work. Now, the next time your knees come up, walk your feet back into parallel and let your feet come off the floor a little bit and drop your knees down to the right. And your top knee can be on top of your left knee could be on top of your right knee. Now you might be feeling a big pull into the left shoulder. So what I'm going to say is let's all roll onto the right side. So take your left arm across to the right, rolling onto your right side. Now slide your right hand beyond your left, slide your left hand beyond your right hand. So you're going to reach out. There's something on the floor that you're looking to grab, a little dust bunny or something. And now keeping this left arm straight, just let it reach up toward the ceiling. Maybe your head came off, your head's going to come back down. And then let that left arm open back down toward the floor and look back over that shoulder. So this is a pretty deep twist. Be mindful if your arm and shoulder don't touch the floor, don't force it. Maybe the arm can reach up over your head a little bit. Breathe in, breathe out. And now let's close it back over the right again. And we're going to reach again, reach out, and then lift that arm and open back up into that twist. We're staying on the same side. And we're going to do it one more time in a moment. So reach out, look out over that left shoulder. And then here we go. We're going to close it again. Reach it out. Stay connected to yourselves. And then open that arm. Reach it out, reach it out, reach it out. And now we're going to stay here with the arms reaching into a T. And this is where you really need to shore up your foundational energy, pelvic floor lifting, navel lifting, as you bring both knees back to center. Let your feet come down onto the floor for a moment. Press into your hips, lift your hips for just an inch or so. Drop your, and keep your hips lifted here, feet on the floor, drop your hips down, and then lift your feet off the floor a couple of inches. Let your knees drop over toward the left. Easy does it. Look toward the right. And then we take that right arm across to the left. You reach, 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 reach. And then lift that arm up and fan it open. Reach out. Close over, going toward the left again. Reaching, reaching, reaching. And then fan it open. And then we'll do one more. So reaching, notice the difference in the sides, right? Maybe your left hip is tighter, your right hip, your glute. And then we'll pause here for a breath or two or three. And on your next exhalation, once again, shore up your foundation and bring your spine back onto the floor. Drop your feet to the floor. Lift your hips, lengthen your tail, and just settle here for another breath. Okay. Breathe in, breathe out. Once again, feel your bones just settling down on the earth. Now, when we first came onto our backs, I asked you to get your straps handy. So let's use them, okay? So here we go. You're on your back. You can bend your knees, feet on the floor. Let's open up the strap. And we'll take your strap around the ball of your foot and extend your, I'm doing the right leg, so we'll start with the right leg and extend your right leg up. Now, if you're in a situation where you don't have a strap with you, you can use a sock, you can use a scarf, a belt, right? So it doesn't really matter. It's just giving yourselves an opportunity to not struggle to reach your leg. Now, once your right leg is up, you can reach your hands as close to the foot as you can get it, but this leg is straight. And the right hip is dropping down toward the floor as you press the foot up into the strap. Now, we're all stretched out and ready probably for this. So extend your left leg, no strap, up toward the ceiling, and then let that left leg slide down onto the mat. So remember, kneecap is up toward the sky. The sole of your right foot is up toward the sky. Now imagine your right leg is going to move forward but you don't let it, right? So that right thigh is pressing forward, but the leg is not moving. So a beautiful stretch for the right hamstring. Now take both ends of the strap in your right hand. Your left hand can be on top of your left thigh, and then let your right leg just fan open. Now, you don't want the leg to necessarily touch the floor because most likely that'll mean that your left hip came off. So you want to keep your left hip on the floor as you open that right leg out and keep pressing through that heel. Big stretch for that inner thigh. Press the back of your right thigh forward a little bit more. Yeah, good. Keep it going. Another breath. We're just going to hold it. Nice long stretch, right? We've been doing a lot of moving. Now we're just going to hold it for another breath. Notice the different sensations throughout your leg, your hamstring, your quadricep muscle, inner and outer thigh. And then with your next breath, bring that whole right leg up toward the ceiling. So this is where we change hands. So we're going to take the left hand onto that strap, right hand comes down. You can take your, actually before you take your right hand out, take your right hand on right into the crease of that groin again. And just like we did earlier, we kept pressing that thigh forward. We're going to do a little of that now. And then once you do that, let the right leg come across the midline of your body. And you're just going to pause there. If you feel any tenderness or tightness or holding, especially in the hip, back out of it a little bit, move the leg forward a little, and we'll just pause here and just feel that whole outer right band stretching. And then let the right leg come back to center, bend your left knee, take the strap off of that right leg, and then let the right leg just slide straight on the mat, and another shaking of that leg. You can even do a few leg bangers here, just releasing. Okay, here we go. Right foot on the floor. Bring the left knee in. Take the strap around the ball of that left foot. Stretch it up toward the ceiling. Press out. Flex that foot. Yeah. So it's a nice, strong, working leg. Yeah. And then we'll lift the right leg and extend that right leg long on the mat. Stretch it out. Press that heel forward. Press the left leg up. Breathe in, breathe out. Keep pressing the back of that left thigh. And then take both ends of the strap in your left hand. Right hand can be onto your right thigh for grounding. And then just let the left leg open out. Remember, the right hip wants to stay down. Keep breathing. Breathe in, breathe out. Really ground that right hip down as you open that left thigh. And we're going to be here for a few breaths. Pressing out through your heel. Keep it going. Another moment. Maybe you feel a little shaking, a little vibration throughout your legs. Not a bad thing. Just don't struggle. And then let's bring that left leg up. Right hand takes that left leg. Left thumb goes into the crease right where that leg meets your hip socket. And then we press it forward, and then we bring that left leg across the midline. Keep dropping your left hip toward the floor. And again, stretching that outer band, that IT band. And then let your left leg come back up. Bend your right knee. Release your left foot. 2 feet on the floor, knees up toward the ceiling. Take a pause, or actually you want to stretch that left leg long. That feels really good after this, is letting that left leg come onto the mat. Mm-hmm. And then we'll bend that knee. So here we are again, 2 feet on the floor. This time we're going to let both knees roll toward the right. We're going to roll all the way onto the right side, and then bring yourselves up. And we'll come around. We're on our backs for quite a bit, so we're going to come around onto your mat, center yourself If you need a little cushioning, we're not going to be there that long because we're just going to come into a down dog. But do a little child's pose, maybe a long extended arm in your child's pose, just to stretch out and change the energy, not only in your lower body, but your upper body, your head. And now draw yourselves up to tabletop primitive pose. 2 strong straight arms. So here again, we feel the hands on the ground, right? So the fingertips. And now we're going to tuck the toes under. So we have our toes and our fingertips on the ground. Draw your hips back a little bit. Look forward. Look forward. Strong elbows. Navel in. And then from here, we come into our first downward dog. Now I'm inching my toes back a little bit because I just want a little bit more space. So remember, the heels are up. Navel in, press your forearms forward. Draw the navel in a little bit more, like so you can really lift your hips up toward the ceiling without splaying that lower back or your ribs. Press through those arms. And let's energize this pose a little bit, see how all of that leg work and hip work helps us in our plank. Yeah. So come into your plank pose, right? Imagine your tail going towards your heels, your belly coming in. Space between your shoulder blades, lifting a little bit toward the sky, crown of the head reaching toward the front of the room or your mat. And now draw your hips back up. Downward facing dog. Walk your feet forward toward your hands just an inch or two to really set those heels again, and just lift your right leg up toward the ceiling. You can lift the heel to get it up there and then send that left heel down. Press out. And then drop your right foot down and lift your left heel up, left leg, press, navel in, and drop it down. And then from here, just start to walk your feet forward toward your hands or toward the center of your mat. Let your head hang, Uttanasana. So here's a nice forward fold, right? But our hamstrings, our quadricep muscles, our hips are nice and stretched and open. Bring your hands to your hips. Extend your spine forward. And we come up to stand. Woo. Yeah. All right. Took a long time to get up on our feet today. How you guys doing? What are you doing there, Carol? Some squats? Good. Okay. So let's do what Carol did. Carol, did you have your heels up while you were doing that? Because if you did, that's really hard. So open your feet just a little bit wide-ish, a little wider than your hips. And let's just squat down and up. So it's like almost like bridging, right? Tush goes back, like we're going to sit in a chair. Let's do a few of those. Feels good. Thank you. Great for the hips, balance, core. All right, enough of that. I'm going to turn to the side here because we're going to step either your left or your right. Well, let's step the left foot back. So I'm not going to mirror you now. We're going to do the same leg. So see how I stepped it back and I turned the toe out a little bit. You don't want to cross that back heel from the front heel. Hands on the hips, and we'll just bend the front knee. And similar to what we just did with those squats, let's keep it going a little bit. So bend that front knee, straighten it. All right, so we're really working that back leg a little bit. Make sure your back heel stays down. Next time you straighten the leg, we'll lift the arms up, get nice and tall, and then bend your right knee. And then open your gaze up toward the ceiling. And here we are in literally one of my favorite poses, Virabhadrasana 1. Breathe in, breathe out, gorgeous. Now let's bow the pose, right? So from this Vira 1, let's just come back up to vertical a little bit. Let the arms come back behind, interlace your fingers, and just bow it down. So we're changing the weight, changing our balance. Can you tuck your chin a little bit? Look really behind you. And then release the arms down, reach forward, and find your way back up. Nice. Let the arms come down and step your back foot forward. All right, let's do the other side. So we'll step the right foot back, turn the toes out a little bit, make sure your front foot and your back foot not crowding each other, right? You want to have some space. That will help with balance. Hands on the hips to start, back heel is down, we bend, we straighten. And we'll keep doing that for a little bit, just to open up that back hip, the back thigh. And you'll probably feel the back ankle too, right? Big stretch for the Achilles, the outer ankle, the peroneal muscles. Now, the next time your legs straighten, let's reach the arms up and exhale. Bend your left knee. Inhale, look up, open, right? Feel your foundation, feel your heart, feel your gaze. Another breath. And then we'll take the hands behind, interlace your fingers, and bow down again. So devotional warrior, keeping that front knee pretty bent. Maybe bend it a little extra as you look down. And then release your hands forward, gather on up, Vira one. And then the arms come down, you push off of that back foot and step it forward. Yeah. Okay. So grab your blocks. Grab your blocks. I think one, we do a lot of standing balances in yoga. I mean, that's what's so great, right? Recently saw that article again. I think we talked about it a couple of years ago, where in order to, if you want to add longevity to your lives, all you need to do is stand on one leg for 10 seconds or more, right? I should really research a little bit more on why they've determined that. But if you just stand on one leg for at least 10 seconds or more, it like somehow it boosts your longevity, right? So if you want to live long, all you got to do is stand on one leg for the rest of your life, right? I guess, I don't know. It's kind of funny. So we balance, right? And look at all of you. There's not an issue. It's not an issue to stand on one foot for more than 10 seconds. Even if you're wobbly, what difference does it make? It's okay. And then let it come down. So we do a lot of that one-legged stuff in our yoga practice, right? In our yoga classes. We do the one, I think we did this a couple weeks ago, Ardha Chandrasana. But the hardest one, I think, for most people are the Vira threes, right? So that's when we want to be very level in our pelvis. Usually what happens here is this, right? So what we want to do is be very neutral. So this opposite hip, so if I do it from here, so you can watch me, right? So this is kind of neutral, and then you can see how it's tipping, right? So in order to get this back leg down, the inner thigh has to lift, but also this standing hip has to lift. It's a constant conversation. So find your blocks and use the blocks on the highway. Create like a cube for yourself. Put your fingertips onto your blocks and practice that hip thing, right? Practice keeping your hips as level as you can. Now, one other trick to getting your hips level is to bend your standing knee. So that long leg, that standing leg, bend the knee, level your hips. There you go, Joan. And then you can straighten the leg once those hips are level. Yeah. Now, oftentimes we don't even know if that hip is lifted. And then do the other side if you haven't already done both sides. Yeah. So that's it. That's right. So Rob threw his arm on his hips, and you can really feel with the back of your hand if your hips are level. So do the other side. Nice, Steve. Both Steves. Yeah. Good. And then let it come down. So this is a really good one, you know, to use the blocks, even to use like, I'll do it like when I'm waiting for the tea kettle to boil to make a coffee or tea. I'll put my hands on the kitchen counter and I'll, you know, kind of play around, right? Because what else are you going to do, right? You know, I'm sure you can do a lot of other things. So I'll play around with working on that that rotation. So with Virabhadrasana 3, of course, we want to come off of the blocks, although, you know, it's good work, and try to maintain our balance and our equal pelvis while we're floating. So step your left foot back, just like we did for Vira 1, but the only difference that I want you to do is to not turn your back toes out, but to keep your back foot parallel. So when we come into our high lunge, we usually have our back foot parallel. Now let your hands come onto your hips. Let's bend that front knee. So that'll be your left knee, right? So your right knee, if your left foot is back. And we're gonna just look forward. Again, there's something on the floor in front of you. You're gonna push off of that back foot, keep the front knee bent, lift the back leg, right? With your hands on the hips, you can feel if they're level. Keep lifting the back heel. So another mistake that people make is that they don't lift that back leg enough. And then when you're ready, bring it on down. Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's just a hinge. I know when we say just, it's like, yeah, just, but we know how hard it is. So we're just hinging in the joints, right? We're hinging in the knee, we're hinging in the lift and the hips. So you want to really lift that back leg. By lifting that back leg, it brings you forward more. So if you haven't done the other side, do the other side. Good. Now, finishing on up, good. Great. Let's pause, catch a breath. So ideally, when you're looking at pictures in Yoga Journal or yoga books, the arms are overhead, right? You can even have the arms in temple, right? As that leg is back and, you know, they're perfectly parallel to the floor. So you can decide what you want to do with your arms. People like forward, they find it easy. People want to keep their hands on the hips, so you can even bring your hands into Yoga Mudra. You can bring your hands onto the block or onto a chair or whatever you have. But we're going to start to float that pose a little bit more, okay? So how would you like to come into Virabhadrasana 3, Warrior 3 pose? And go into it. Whatever leg you want to start with, it doesn't matter to me. You're all at home doing your own thing. But just remember, if you start with your front leg bent, it gives you a little opportunity to level your hips right there. And then you can eventually straighten it. Now, you can't look straight down. You have to put your gaze a little bit forward. It's like you're flying. I don't think birds look down when they're flying. I think they're looking forward and out to the periphery. I don't know. Great. So you're going to do it again on each side, on, you know, the other side, I mean. That's really beautiful, Carol. Yeah, good. So, Aline, you have both hands on blocks or something, right? So do it again and just take the like if your right leg is up, take your left hand forward. Keep one hand on a block. So I'm just going to challenge you a little bit here. Yeah, so we're going to do it one more time. We never give ourselves this time to give it. Good. So, Rob, what I would say is try to lift that back leg a little bit higher. There you go, Lean. So make sure you keep lifting that leg. Yes, keep coming forward over the standing leg. Beautiful. You can even look toward that hand that's reaching, Aline. Look toward that hand a little bit. Yes, gorgeous. Another breath. And when you're ready, gently release. So this is great. So what I just asked Aline to do is to, um, just take one hand off of the block. So if that's the case for you, put one hand on a block and take the other one off. Did you do both sides again? I know we're doing it a lot because it's an important pose. There you go. Now radiate your energy out. It's like really shoot the energy out through the front, the back, the top, the bottom, all over. Yes. Gorgeous. And then when you're ready, let it go. Good. All right. So a lot of work, a lot of balancing, a lot of core, a lot of focus, right? And a lot of longevity because you were holding those poses a lot more than 10 seconds. So with your next breath, you can keep your feet wide, parallel, or turned out a little bit. You decide, let the knees really bend, kind of slouching a little bit here, and we'll do a little empty coat sleeves. You can let the back heel come off the ground. Do one or two here, just letting us flow. Get your head going, shake it out, and then come back to center. So with your feet kind of wide, let's just roll down, roll down, roll down, roll down, and roll up. Knees are incredibly soft as you're doing this. This is just to kind of loosen, get a little flow. And the next time you roll up, I'm going to turn to the side, feet are wide. I'm going to roll the hands back and let your hands come kind of on your sacrum, on your buttocks, fingertips facing down. We are not collapsing the spine. So lift through the front of the body, really lift up and let your pelvis kind of move forward, but it's moving forward as if it's pressing against the wall. So there's no collapsing in that lower back. And then there's a string from your belly button, from your breastbone, lifting you up toward the ceiling. You can even slide your hands down the back of the thighs as we come into a little standing back bend here. Opening, opening. So think about your bridge spine. And then let your head lift. Exhale, drop your chin to the chest, roll down, feet are wide, roll all the way down, knees are nice and soft. And then let your hands come down on the floor, walk your hands forward. You might need to switch things around depending on where you are on your mat. And then walk your feet back. And here we are, meeting in down dog again. Breathe in, breathe out. From this down dog, lift your heels, bend your knees, let your knees touch the floor. Coming into an extended child's pose, keep your hands where they are. You can even inch your hands a little bit more forward, really stretching out. And then round up into a cat tilt. So we're coming up into this big Halloween cat, right? See a lot of Halloween cats lately. And then let your pelvis start to drop toward the floor. Arms are long and straight. Lift your torso, look forward, and we're going to be in this dangling cobra. Spread your collarbones, keep lifting your belly. Let your elbows bend, bring your belly down, forehead down. Breathe in, breathe out. And then with your next breath, press into those hands, roll back up into your cobra, your dangling cobra. Let your pelvis hang, belly in, be mindful of your lower back. And then use your navel as you bring yourselves back into your extended child's pose. From this child's pose, let your hands come back. Let your forehead rest onto the floor. Breathe in, breathe out. And then slowly make your way up. If you're sitting on your shins, if that's okay, fine. But we're just using this as a transition as you start to bring yourselves around onto your backs. We'll get ready for Shavasana. Feel free to put a blanket under your head or something under your knees. And start to settle. Turn off any lights. Create any kind of atmosphere that you'd like in your home. Let's take in a breath. If you're ready to come out of Shavasana, slowly let the breath bring you back into your body. If you need to hang out a little longer, go ahead. And once you're ready, you'll come up to your seated position. Now, having come full circle, notice how you feel physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, bringing breath, healing, light, love, compassion to any part of you that still needs support. With gratitude for this practice of yoga, with gratitude for all of us in the Zoom, for gratitude for all of the folks that will be watching the recording, and with just a sense of gratitude for our lives. Let's seal our practice with the sound of Om, taking in breath. Om. Mm. Thank you all very much. Namaste. Let me end the recording. Say goodbye.